Hello, welcome to Bookworms. It's the show where we read books and then talk about books. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Joe.
How you doing, Joe?
Doing good, Alex. How are you doing?
I am fantastic.
That's good to hear. You look kind of ratty. It looks like you need a haircut again.
Oh yeah, it comes in quick. I don't know what I'm doing.
Not getting haircuts?
Yeah, I always even if it's I just barely cut it out of my eyes and trim the sides a little bit. I'm still like, oh, I'll wait 6 months. It's fine. And then 8 months go by and I'm finally like, oh, geez, I need a haircut.
Yeah, I'm feeling kind of like a hippie now because I've let my hair grow out for like the last 3-4 months. It's kind of shaggy and kind of weird. It's been a long time since I've grown it out this long.
Yeah, I can barely see the top of your forehead.
I know. It looks like I have a normal sized forehead again.
Yeah, it's down to a 4 head. It was a 5 head.
6 head anyways.
Yeah.
Just more room for brains, Alex. More room for brains.
Yes, we're large-brained individuals over here.
So, what book did we have today, Alex?
Yes, this was a My Choice book.
Which we all hate.
We love this book. It was great.
It was okay.
Yeah, it was one of the most shockingly adequate books I've ever read.
And that's saying something, because you read a lot of books.
Yeah, it's by one of...
I see in our competition, Alex, you're starting to pull ahead of me finally. You're kind of a late, for a number of books you read here. It's kind of a late, jump for you. But usually you're closer to Becky, but she's well into the hundreds.
Yeah, I was falling behind for a while, and then I started reading Attack on Titan. I just totally blew right through everything. So yeah, Attack on Titan, great manga series. It definitely. I know we're talking about a different book, but we wax poetic on Attack on Titan. Manga is trash. I'm gonna start by saying that.
Yeah, the little bit I've dipped my toe into it, it's pretty out there.
Yeah, but Attack on Titan, it's so creative. It's great. I tried watching the anime and I couldn't get into it, but the books really held me. Even when they were getting away from the Titans for a while and getting all just into the politics of the nation inside the wall and all this stuff. But then the Titans come back in a big bad way, and it totally blew my mind. So if you ever get a chance to read Attack on Titan, you should do it.
I will probably skip that one, Alex. I'm not gonna lie. I've been kind of disappointed with the graphic novels I've been reading lately, and manga is just that extra step further that I don't get the enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
But as we were talking about, you reading all them graphic novels and YA, you've really started catching up on that book count there for our competition.
Yeah, I think
unfortunately for you, the page count's still not there. So
yeah, I've also started reading the Fables series.
Yeah, I saw that. Really you like those?
Oh, I love it. It's so good.
I read those a long time ago. Those were great.
Yeah, I read the first book forever ago, and I just never kept up with it. But the place I work at now has the entire series, and so I've been checking it out.
I got to read the last 2 or 3 still, but
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, maybe if we do one of those long series, we can do a bonus episode.
Okay. Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Saga is always good. That's a good one.
Oh, Saga's so good. That series is ongoing still.
Anyways, that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah,
Alex, quit gilding the lily here. Let's get to the...
We're talking about one of our most beloved modern authors, I would say. I would say she's earned that title, right?
Yeah, she's definitely up there. It always kind of surprised me because you read her and you think, oh, this is so great. This must be one of those classic authors from the 30s or 40s or 50s and 60s kind of thing. And no, this stuff's all coming out now.
Yeah, she definitely has a very old school storytelling style, and that she's just really taken and made her own. I mean, she is older now. She's in her 80s, I think. But
yeah, so she was alive for some of that, but
yeah. Yeah, but she's been writing for the past 50, 60 years, and she pumps out banger after banger, and
yeah, there's not a lot that she has written that's not been good. So I mean, it probably is. If you haven't figured out, we're talking about Margaret Atwood, as it should have said in the title of this episode.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
But the only one I haven't really enjoyed was The Testament. Did you read that one yet?
Yeah, I did read Testaments. It was, I mean, it's good.
Nah, it was just, I felt it was just a money grab because it completely...
It was definitely a money grab for 100% a money grab. But it was, I thought it was, as far as late in life sequels, it holds up. It doesn't do any justice to the Handmaid's Tale, really, but the Handmaid's Tale is always just going to live on its own. But it was definitely like,
Well,
oh, the show's big right now.
yeah.
It's award season.
What got me was that she basically took the show as canon instead of her original story as canon, and that's kind of, I guess, what he's like. It would have been cool, like, if you made a sequel about another character there. Could have been from the show, but still have it part of the original book, how it worked instead of how the show worked, because there was a lot of key details that they changed in the show, which we'll get into probably, 'cause we'll probably cover the Handmaid's Tale at some point.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge Margaret Atwood fan, and Handmaid's Tale is one of her top three. Most people like, if you're gonna read one Margaret Atwood book, it's gonna be The Handmaid's Tale, but it's that's just a great story. But we're not talking about The Handmaid's Tale.
No,
either.
we're not.
We're
We're still not getting into that book, Alex. What book did you
we're
pick?
really creeping up on it, aren't we?
What are we, like 10 minutes in already?
Almost. No, we are talking about it's probably a lesser known story. It's a later career book that she came out with. It's called the Penelopiad.
So, what's that story about, Alex?
So are you familiar with the story? It's not a recent one. It's called the Odyssey.
Never heard of it.
Okay. The Odyssey is actually a sequel to another book called the Iliad.
Still lost.
Oh man. Oh, you're in for a treat. So,
Didn't they have a wishbone on one of those?
oh my God, you're right. Yeah, stop listening and go watch Wishbone, guys. So, yes, the Iliad, the Odyssey, classic Greek epic poems about the Trojan War, the downfall of Troy. We all know Helen and Paris and Hector and Achilles.
And you just had to copy me in the whole mythos thing after the Tane.
So Joe went with an Irish folk tale. I went with a Greek epic mythological story.
Hey, how come I get a folk tale and you get an epic? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
I think mine was pretty epic.
It was pretty epic. It was an epic. It's 200-page story about a bull, so yeah. It's about as epic as can be.
Yeah, I mean, how many other 200-page books are there about the best bull of a whole nation?
Exactly. So the Iliad focuses a lot on Achilles and the fighting in Paris and Hector and fighting, trying to break through Troy and get Helen back for Agamemnon.
So one thing I never realized with the Iliad until I read the Stephen Fry story about the Iliad, which is really good. I highly recommend that. The actual Iliad basically starts in the middle of the war and ends in the middle of the war.
Yeah, like the I think like Achilles' death and everything, like it doesn't actually even happen in the Iliad.
Yeah,
It's
it doesn't.
like supplemental stories that have come out.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much is missed in that whole poem. It's like, but people just assume it's like, oh, we just everyone knows the story of how it started, the birthplace of a lot of these and origin stories of a lot of the heroes, and then they know how it ends. But the actual Iliad doesn't actually cover like 90% of it.
Do you want to know something funny?
What?
So I was an English major.
Okay, that was the funny bit, right?
Yeah. Well, look at my bank account, and that's really funny. Then I've also been a librarian for about a decade now.
I'm loving this joke, Alex.
Yeah, never read the Iliad.
Really?
Really?
That wasn't like required reading in college?
No, the Odyssey was. I read the Odyssey,
Okay.
but I've never read the Iliad.
Okay.
But the Odyssey is why I chose this book, because I love the Odyssey. The Odyssey is great.
So that Wishbone episode was amazing.
It really is. There's some really iconic scenes from that Wishbone episode, and the Odyssey. So the Odyssey focuses on one of the characters from the Iliad I haven't mentioned yet, a guy named Odysseus.
Yep.
And
what a jerk he is.
Yeah, it's about Odysseus's 10-year journey home after his 10 years war with Troy, and the Penelopiad is about Odysseus's wife Penelope.
How about we read the back of the book, Alex? The book that you forgot, so I grabbed for you.
Yes, thank you. Penelope. There's a single sentence word on the back of this. Anyway, or a single word sentence on the back of this. All right, Penelope. immortalized in legend and myth as the devoted wife of the glorious Odysseus, silently weaving and unpicking and weaving again as she waits for her husband's return. Now Penelope wanders the underworld, spinning a different kind of thread, her own side of the story, a tale of lust, greed, and murder.
Why are you talking weird?
I don't know. Is it murder? Yeah, so this is a story told from Penelope's point of view. If you remember her from the Odyssey, dear listeners, she waits 20 years for her husband's return. The entire time she's being belabored by suitors who are trying to marry her and take all of Odysseus's land and titles and money and property. And she fends them off. She comes up with clever ways to delay, like having to, marry any of them or make any decisions based on that. And she's seen as this devoted wife. She's like this paragon of
and this story is told, so, as you said, from her perspective, from the afterlife. So she's in this, I forget what the field is called, but she's in the afterlife. She's telling her story to you, the audience. So it's told in kind of a first person narrative, except that there's a lot of other chapters that are told in almost it's kind of play like, because they'll have the chorus, which are the 12 maids that were killed. And
yeah, she utilizes a lot of classic Greek storytelling. So there's a chorus that like narrates things that are going on, or provides commentary, because a lot of this stuff was it was told by, like, Homer was just a blind guy who stood on a milk crate and shouted the poem at people. That's gross exaggeration, but he there was always like a Greek chorus who was like, even like Shakespeare would do this, is like someone who recaps what's going on or adds to it, provides commentary.
Yeah, and it's, sometimes used as, like, especially, like, I think a lot of people recognize that with, like you said, Shakespeare as like the comic relief to add the tension into it, or explain some backstory, so that, like in Macbeth, people understand, oh, this is who this character is and their story.
Yeah, it's like right after the king gets murdered in Macbeth, there's the night watchman who's drunk, and he kind of narrates what's going on. It's funny. But yeah, this one starts, Penelope has died, and the opening sentence is, "Now that I'm dead, I know everything." And knowing everything, she's kind of disappointed by it.
Yeah, and we're getting the story from, like, today. It's so we're hearing it from 3,000, 4,000 years later, kind of thing. And so she's had time to, and basically she's stuck with all the people that she knew from the story, and is just in kind of a purgatory, being, no one, able to escape each other, and the same petty squabbles continuing, but without the ability to kill each other, since they're already dead and don't have bodies. As she repeatedly reminds us that I don't have a body, so all these earthly things are gone, and I so miss them.
And there's like funny little bits, like the suitors that get killed at the end of the story. They're just like hanging out with her, and like there's a dude with like an arrow in his neck, and he just sort of leaves it in there as like a guilt trip, even though he could totally take it out.
Yeah, he's trying to guilt her for his murder, and she's like, yeah, just, you're kind of an asshole, so I don't really care. So, and when he does pull it out, she's like, yeah, put it back in. You're a bigger asshole with it with it out.
Yeah. And the chorus is made up of the 12 maids that get hung during Odysseus' rampage on his return home, because he kills all the suitors, but he also kills all the maids in his building for assisting the suitors. There's a lot of focus put on that in the story too. Yeah, it's pretty dark with them.
And so, but we'll start at the beginning here. We're kind of jumping around at the moment. So, how does it begin, Alex? We start with Penelope at her homeland, dealing with her hated cousin who started a whole war.
Yeah, we get about half the first half of the book is backstory, I guess. So yeah, we learn about Penelope's parentage. Her dad tried to drown her, and that's left her pretty messed up. She has trouble trusting people, and she's never really like processed like what happened there. And
she does consider herself pretty clever and smarter than the average, I guess you could call it, woman. because so many of them are, in her view, are just kind of looking to get married and pump out kids, and she's like, but you need to have brains. And so she kind of doesn't worry about her looks so much, which she gets teased about.
Yeah, but you also get like the vibe that she's a little bit like embittered by it too, because like she sees Helen, it's like everyone in love with Helen. She tracks every guy's gaze, and she has this way of looking back at people as if they're the only guy that she sees.
She's totally jealous.
Yeah, she's 100% jealous, and then she'll like focus, like turn it inwards and be like, I'm the one who's called smart. It's like I know I'm pretty, but I'm not turning everyone's heads. I'm the intelligent one. I'm loved for my brains and my devotion. And yeah, I think she sees Helen, and she clearly doesn't like Helen, but she seems to, I guess, be almost envious of what Helen has.
Yeah, she kind of wants that kind of attention, but she can't admit to it to herself because she's like, how can I ever be that beautiful? Of course, I don't think she realizes how much Helen probably has to put into her own image and the rumor mill, how much she's putting out there to say, oh yeah, I'm the most beautiful woman in the world. It's not just the gods made me beautiful, therefore I'm beautiful, and this is how I wake up every morning. So I said, I think there is some missing there for Penelope's perspective of, oh, this is why this worked. It's not that, and she makes it sound like she's some ugly duckling, Penelope, but obviously she's probably just more average looking than anything, which not for royalty back in the day is not necessarily a bad thing, because the peasants of Greece were pretty well abused and used looking by the time they were 12 because they worked in the fields all day.
You work in a field, there's no like moisturizing cream or lotion to keep yourself looking youthful. You don't have dietitians and workout plans to keep you in shape, but no, that's beside the point. She's got a lot going on inside of her head, and she gets, I guess it's an arranged marriage, right, between her and Odysseus.
So basically what it is her father, who's likes to think of himself as clever, says, we're going to have a competition for my daughter's hand in marriage.
Oh, yes.
Odysseus, right, who had already failed at capturing Helen, comes up with a plan with Penelope's uncle, Helen's father. I think it was Helen's father, or maybe it was another uncle, to rig the competition so that he would win and get Penelope. And then instead of living at Penelope's family's home, which is what I guess was traditionally done by the Greeks according to the story, he'd take her back to his home and basically lock her in the tower and have his clever wife pumping out babies. It was his motivation on why he needed Penelope to go back with him was never really made clear, or his motivation. Because it sounded like he went from a richer kingdom to his poorer kingdom.
Yeah, there's Penelope's like in her omniscience, knowing everything in death. She's very coy about what Odysseus's like mindset is through the whole time, because like even after he wins her, like he's like it's not just like, oh, you're my wife now, come and we'll do things. He tries to win her over as well. Like,
yeah, he basically, I wrote a note basically saying Penelope makes him sound like a typical con artist, someone that is a bit narcissistic, needs to be loved, needs the game to work, but he's just in it for the con. He's not in it for any real motivation other than winning.
Yeah, she definitely has very conflicting feelings about her husband, because yeah, he's definitely affectionate. She likes to make fun of like he's kind of goofy looking. She keeps describing him as barrel chested and
short legs.
Yeah, short legs. So I don't know, she's like, the wife can kind of like mock your looks a little bit, but you still know like there's some affection there, and like she definitely has that affection, but I think she also acknowledges that he's not really an honest guy, and she never really knew him in life, and he did things.
Well, I think she knew, and she just refused to admit it to herself. Yeah. Because throughout the whole story, you're getting two different tales of the rumors. You get the one that comes out in the Odyssey, and then you get the one that's more like reality of him whoring around and doing all sorts of vile things.
Yeah, like the Odyssey's full of swashbuckling adventure. He's sleeping with nymphs and goddesses, and he's blinding Cyclops. It's Yeah, he's
And really, she makes it, oh yeah, he was just whoring around, going, the goddess was really some princess that he had wooed, but couldn't actually marry because she was already married.
Odysseus and Penelope. They have a son, Telemachus, and
The broody teenager.
yes, the broody teenager. And then, like as soon as he's born, though, the Trojan War breaks out because Helen, in her infinite beauty and wisdom, flees with Paris to Troy, and she's chased by the Greeks.
And it's kind of funny because the whole time, every time Penelope wants to use her cleverness to help Odysseus, she actually ends up almost hurting him. So it's like they're both they're both on the same team but not giving each other the other's playbook. So like when Odysseus is trying to fake madness to get out of going to the Trojan War, Penelope's like, "Oh, I see what he's doing. I'll play along. I'll do this thing," and then she ends up busting his disguise because she brings the baby along, and the I forget who it was, throws the baby in front of the plow, and Odysseus manages to just barely miss the baby.
Yeah, he shows that he's not insane by not running over his child. And they're like, "Ha, got you!" And then they drag him to war.
But it's kind of funny because that was Penelope's plan was, oh, he'll show us crazy, but then she's thwarted because she didn't think everything through, and the two of them never discuss, hey, do this or this, and this was how we'll make it work.
Yeah, and I think she was even like calling into question, like, did he really like not want to fight, or was it just like putting on a show for me, and he was always gonna go?
I don't think it was so much that. I think he wanted to get. I think he realized he made a bad deal with the Helen thing, saying, "Oh well, I'll back you up," and he really didn't want to go out into a war because there's enough uncertainty. Then people die in war, so he's like, "Why would I want to risk my neck for some other guy's wife that I don't get a bang?" I think he's very selfish and self-centered, but so I don't think he wanted to actually fight. But once he was out there, it's like, okay, well, I'm out here. I might as well do my worst and enjoy myself. One thing that happened too is you get this sense the mother-in-law of Penelope really doesn't like her, nor does the nanny.
Well, you don't get the sense that she just flat out says, like, yeah, she does not like me.
And it was almost the mother-in-law was almost better because she just flat out ignored Penelope, and Penelope was like, yeah, I can handle that. But the nanny was like domineering and saying, no, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z. And when Penelope had the baby, the nanny's like, I'm taking over. You don't get unsupervised time with your own kid, and you get limited time with your own kid. And Penelope's just kind of basically alone on this island. She has no friends because all of her handmaids that had gone with her from her father were old and died within the first few years, and she's really just kind of going, in a prison.
Yeah, she's describing like going through walks through the garden, and the handmaids that are with her, they don't walk beside her, they don't engage in conversation, they're standing back, as you do, and so she's this queen of the island, but she has no one to talk to because her husband's not there, and there's no one who's like in the way royalty is structured, like she's on top of everybody, but it's lonely at the top.
Yeah, and basically until Odysseus leaves, she had nothing to do, and then once he does leave, she's able to kind of take control over the finances and running of the household, and especially of the property, like getting more sheep and cows and goats and all that stuff. But even that kind of seemed like it was false, or not false modesty, but overindulgence of how much she actually had to contribute, where she's telling people what to do, and it's almost like her stewards and her slaves are just like, yeah, whatever you want, Queenie, we'll do it, and then just kind of going and doing what they're going to do anyways, and then her taking the credit for being successful.
Yeah, and so like she goes like for 10 years, because Odysseus, the Trojan War lasts for 10 years. She's being patient, and she's getting news of her husband and the back and forth of the Trojan War.
She's making the island extremely wealthy, which it hadn't been before. So she's expanding Odysseus's basically his territory and his wealth and his prestige.
And the whole time Telemachus is growing up, the handmaids, they really do a great job taking care of him. That's like a whole like really tragic story behind the whole thing.
Yeah, and basically she had brought in 12 girls to be his playmates and basically be human dolls for him.
His caretakers.
Yeah.
Like, they change him, they play with him, they
They're-
spend their
they're-
whole life devoted to raising him.
Yeah, and then they're all his age except for the nanny, who's old enough to be the grandmother because she raised Odysseus.
Yeah, the chorus of the dead maids, like they make it abundantly clear, like, we're not happy about how this situation wound up.
Yeah, they thought they were gonna get a nice cushy job as young girls, and they realized, nope, this is not how that works.
No, spoilers, they get executed.
After they get repeatedly abused in many horrible ways.
But then the war ends, Odysseus makes his way home, and then, like, all contact is severed for the next 10 years. Like, Penelope hears nothing about him except for rumors that he's, bedding goddesses and,
Killing cyclopses.
And engaging in various adventures. Like, and it's all rumor and hearsay, and people are just saying that to make her. Trying to believe that people are just saying that to make her upset. Like, the suitors, they start moving in and eating all of her food and crashing in her house and sleeping with the maids.
And we start getting this idea, like, so you get all these suitors, which is never given a definite number, even though she's had 3,000 years to figure it out apparently, but she never gives you the actual number. I think that's kind of mocking Atwood's, not mocking, but the differences in the different stories that she took from, saying because not all the sources agree on the number. But you get this sense that these guys are all just there because they realize, hey, there's this rich kingdom for the plucking and some old maid that is running it all, and we can a young son that we could easily do away with, and once we are kings, because they're all younger than Penelope. So
because Penelope, by the time she's 15 when she gets married, and she's about 35, 36 when Odysseus returns.
And so she's in her late 20s, early 30s, and all these guys are in their teens, early 20s.
Yeah, and
old maid.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're familiar with, like, Greek history, but being a good house guest was, like, if you're a bad house guest, that's like an offense that's punishable by death, which is why they get such a harsh end when Odysseus returns.
But it's also, if you're not a good host, then that's also punishable pretty bad. So Penelope's kind of caught in this rock and a hard place where she can't turn them down, but there's too many of them that she can't then kill any of them because she doesn't have the forces, a military force, to back her up. Because that's the one thing she forgot to rebuild once Odysseus left with all the military-aged men.
Yeah, and actually, this is funny. So when we were talking about the Odyssey when I was in college, one of the reasons, like, Odysseus's journey return home takes so long is because Poseidon's angry at him because he blinds the Cyclops, and he was a guest at the Cyclops' house technically. So he was being a bad house guest for the Cyclops by blinding him.
Okay.
But,
So
the Cyclops' punishment for being a bad host was he got blinded as well. So
I thought it was because the Cyclops was Poseidon's son. So there are multiple reasons why Poseidon might be pissed off with a minor king.
Yeah. It's a fun little bit of Greek history for you.
And just the story is very fast paced. It's very short chapters, very quippy lines. It's written in a kind of a poetic form almost.
Yeah, especially like the chorus. It's all in different styles of verse. Penelope's keeps it short and sweet in her storytelling. Just Margaret Atwood's. Talking about opinions of the book. It's definitely shorter than it needs to be. I feel like it could have expanded a little bit, added another 25, 50 pages even, and it would have felt a little more complete.
She was trying to keep it a similar length as the Tane.
Yeah. It's very, I guess you call it vignette-y. There's a lot of vignettes, like very, like, here's what happened here. It doesn't, like, come together as a cohesive story, almost. Because you know the story. Like, theoretically, I think her audience for this book has already read the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Or at least familiar with the story enough that they know the gist of it enough. Because they watch Wishbone.
Yeah. It all comes back to Wishbone.
Hey, that was in the 90s. That was the show for kids.
Yeah. Oh, God, I love Wishbone.
Anyways, so we also get that. So the maids in the original story are looked at as traitors, but Penelope's version of the story is that no, they were her spies, and they were doing everything to her bidding, trying to get play the suitors off each other, and by giving certain suitors favors to think that they're more likely to get her than to set off other suitors to bring them back down, and said the maids are being forced to sleep with these guys and do other horrible things with them, and then they're bringing back whatever tidbits they can to Penelope to then just kind of use as information to squirrel away to keep them at bay so that she isn't forced to marry. Because basically, Odysseus, everyone thinks Odysseus is actually dead because no one hears for like 5 years any rumors of him. And they're all like, hey, he's dead. And she's like, well, I haven't had a death dream of him, so I can't marry anyone because I don't know for sure. And they're like, hey, people are lost at sea all the time. This is ancient Greece. That's just what happens. You got to pick. And then she has her whole weaving a shawl that she's picking apart every night, but one of the maids spills the beans on that to one of the suitors because Penelope and all of her scheming failed to realize, hey, people talk, and I got 12 young girls here that aren't exactly trained to be spies that I'm using as spies. And so then they find out, and then she's forced to, okay, you're actually going to have to weave this, and it's a whole shit show.
Yeah. That was like her big plan was like, I'm going to weave a tapestry in honor of my husband, and once it's done, I will start thinking about you suitors. And then she'd just she'd work on it all day, and then pull apart her work every night.
And meanwhile, we're getting the more and more contradictory stories from the handmaids. The maids are very angry with the whole situation because they're like, hey, we got murdered by helping you do what you did, and they're spilling more and more potential secrets, but Penelope's then contradicting them, saying, oh no, that's not how it really happened. They're just angry and jealous, and they don't, and I feel for them, but I won't talk to them in the afterlife. They just kind of stick together and harass. And so then Odysseus finally shows up, acting as a beggar to kind of see what's going on, and Penelope claims that she knew the whole time, even though in the story I believe that they claimed that she didn't, but she's trying to save face, saying, oh yeah, I knew.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I read it, but yeah, she's saying she recognized him the whole time, and that's why she set up the challenge. It's probably the most famous part of the Odyssey is shooting the bow and arrow through the 12 axes to hit the target. But yeah, she sets that up. If she didn't know, she was doing that as a way to stall the suitors. If she did know, she was doing that as a way to signal to Odysseus that she recognized him and his return. But Odysseus,
he murders all the suitors, and then he murders the.
He strings his bow, he shoots the arrow through, and then he engages in a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Him and Telemachus get together. They kill.
That's the other thing. Telemachus is a young man at this point, and he's your typical angry teenager, and he does not like being under his mother's thumb anymore, and so he was causing all sorts of issues too. And
yeah, he was getting rebellious, and now his legendary father's returned, and he wants to.
He wants to prove to him that mom was a bitch, but I was loyal all the time.
Yeah, so they father-son bonding. They kill all the suitors. They hang the maids, which is like the tragic part of this whole story, is because they raise Telemachus, and he ends up killing them all and hanging them gruesomely off of a ship's masts for the world to see.
Meanwhile, Penelope's just locked in her bedroom, pretending she doesn't know any of it's happening, because she apparently cries a lot, and everyone's just like, lady, will you please stop crying all the time? I'm a water nymph, the daughter of a water nymph. I can't stop crying.
That's what we do. But yeah, and then story ends.
Yeah, and we get the kind of the after the story when everyone is dead and in their purgatory. And I did notice at one point towards the end, Penelope kind of admits that the whole story's a lie. Her whole version. So, she says, the two of us were, by our own admission, proficient and shameless liars of long standing. It's a wonder either one of us believed a word the other said, but we did, or so we told each other. So it kind of like gave, to me anyways, it kind of gave the whole story like, okay, this whole thing was just kind of her trying to justify her end of the story, make herself sound better. Because I was getting frustrated through the whole thing because it started off as Odysseus is this asshole, he just used me. And then we get to the end and she's like, yeah, he still does. And I just put up with it because that's what I do. And I'm like, you're dead. You're not tied to him anymore. He's literally getting reincarnated, whoring himself out, doing all these crazy business things, and coming back to you, and you're just like, and you who just stay in the afterlife, never leave. Oh, hi, you're back to me again. Okay, that was another 80 years or 30 years that you had that I just kind of bemoaned you not being here with me, and I hear you had an affair with Helen, and when she got reincarnated, and
yeah, even in death, she's still waiting for him.
yeah, and it was kind of sad, but it's also kind of annoying. It's like you want to scream at Penelope. It's like you're saying how you've grown into this better woman. That's not going to be a domineer. Then here you are still just putting up with it,
perpetuating this cycle of neglect.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so it's a sad story in the end, and she does establish herself as an unreliable narrator by saying that, for sure. Like it's like, this is my perspective.
Because the maids are basically saying that she was sleeping around with the suitors too, at the very end there. They're like, you were doing everything we were doing. You're having just as much fun, partying with the rest of us. Don't deny it.
Yeah, so at the end, like you don't really know what to believe.
Yeah.
It's like you always knew Odysseus was he did some really garbage things, but Penelope's always been thought of in very high regard, but maybe she's not as perfect as she's always made out to be, and maybe her being seen as perfect is not a good thing. Yeah. She's not this role model for the people to look at as this bastion of loyalty. It's like, is loyalty really like at that level? Is that good or is that not good?
One thing also at the end, the maids are complaining that it's a crime that they're basically nameless, that they're just the chorus. There is one maid that was kind of the leader of them that was named, and I thought that was kind of funny because, well, not funny, but just kind of like, how many people in the histories are nameless? It's like you're not the key figures. How many, like Odysseus, how many thousands of Greeks and Trojans died that fought these battles that are just nameless? But everyone knows that Achilles and Odysseus and Agamemnon and all these, all the Greek heroes who would usually only fight when it was all eyes were on them, and then they just kind of go back to their tents and let the troops go back to the slaughter. When it was, oh yeah, okay, we're to the next pitched battle here. Okay, we'll go out there and go again. It just killed countless nameless faces. So the fact that the maids are nameless, even though they're bemoaning, how dare we be nameless? It's like, well, that's just how it goes. You're not the focus of the story.
Yeah, and like it sucks what happened to you. Like 100% does, but it's like names get lost. Yeah. It happens.
So yeah, that was the story. Final thoughts, Alex?
I thought it was good. Like I said, I feel like it could have been longer. I'm a huge fan of Margaret Atwood. She does have some trash books, I'm not gonna lie, but this one is not trash. This one is quite good. I'd say it's not on the level of some of her best known works, like Handmaid's Tale, Oryx and Crake, Blind Assassin. Like those books are S tier level. This one I'd put middle to good. It's not quite great, but it's not bad. It's good. It's a good story.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely one of her weaker stories that I've read. I haven't read her too heavily like you have, but I've read her biggest hits, the Mad Adam trilogy, Handmaid's Tale, Blind Assassin, and I thought those were all better. So the story was okay, though. I was just hoping for more. It was definitely heavy-handed on the feminism, I thought, at times, where a lot of her other stuff is obviously, Atwood's a famous feminist writer, obviously.
Yeah, and I love the way she talks about feminism, because she's got this clear give and take with she, instead of saying men don't understand women, she has that, but she also has women don't understand men. There's this whole you spend your whole life trying to understand somebody.
Well, those other three books that you mentioned had so much nuance to them. It is, like I said, it was obvious, like Handmaid's Tale, you can't, it's like, that is feminism 101 handbook right there. Yeah, this is what happens when women are treated as breeding bags.
That was well put.
Thank you. I can be very poetic sometimes. But it was done in such a way that it's not doesn't feel. I say it's just one of those things like you know it when you see it kind of things. This is just it was done in such a way that it's like this is great writing on something that is obviously very important and needs to be said. But this one I just felt like it got a little over the top, where like I'd be rolling my eyes at things Penelope would be saying about women's rights, and then like you said, then she's going. It's like, but then she's still perpetuating these same flaws that she's screaming bloody murder about.
Yeah, she's bemoaning some things, but also playing into it, and it's like I think it's well done. Like she's clearly trapped in a endless cycle of her situation.
It was basically what it said was no matter especially with when at the end where we're getting all the afterlife stuff where Helen is becoming like Marilyn Monroe and Odysseus is becoming some business tycoon, that saying that basically these people are locked, who you are, you're locked into for all of eternity. You can't change who you are no matter how many times you go back and have a new life, which is kind of a sad way to look at people, because saying, oh yeah, you're Alex, you're a librarian, you're going to be a librarian for the rest of your life, and no matter what, that's just who you are. And when you come back in another life, guess what? You're just still a librarian. In the afterlife, guess what? You're just the librarian. So you'll never be anything else for the rest of eternity.
That's not so bad. I get a lot of free books.
Yeah, but say you were like, hey, I would love to be a NFL quarterback. Nope, you're a librarian. Don't even try.
Go read a book about Tom Brady. That's as close as you're ever gonna get.
But it's just so I get what she was doing there, but it just seemed it wasn't as nuanced as her other more popular writings were, I thought. And it was not a bad story. It just wasn't something that I was like, yeah, this is definitely something I'm going to pick up again. Where I've read the Mad Adam trilogy several times now, and The Handmaid's Tale is definitely on the list of I need to reread that again soon, because they're just that powerful of stories. But yeah, so that was kind of my thought on it. So I like the writing style. I thought the whole format was well done. So I enjoyed the short chapters and the kind of that Greek play type style of writing.
Yeah, and I always just enjoy those like twisted retellings of stories. So she took a well-established story and tweaked it into her own way.
I was really comparing this to Bull a lot.
Yeah, we've done a number of stories like that, because like Bull, Alice does that. They just retell a story in their own manner, and you get a different perspective.
Yes, and Bull being also another Greek myth, and that was all in verse, so you could really draw a lot of comparisons to it. I did think Bull was probably done better. So just that, that whole way that he wrote that was just flawless. Maybe if I read this first, that I'd be flipping it around, but
yeah. Well, I feel like Bull is David Elliott's best book. I've read a number of his stuff, and like Bull is amazing. Like Penelopiad is not Margaret Atwood's best book, and like I feel like if I'd started with reading the Penelopiad as my first introduction to Margaret Atwood, I would probably be like, yeah, I don't know what the hype is. Like it's good, but it's not like I'm not gonna go out and grab more of her stuff. But I started with my first book of hers was The Handmaid's Tale, and I'm like, this book is amazing. I need to read everything she's ever put on paper. I haven't done that, but I totally would.
Yeah. So I got a little leery after Testaments. It's like, okay, we're gonna pump the brakes on this. I wasn't like going out buying her, but it's like we'll pump the brakes on Margaret Atwood. She isn't perfect. It's not like Terry Pratchett.
Yeah, I read a book of hers. It was one of her earlier books called Life Before Man.
Yeah.
I read that and then didn't touch Margaret Atwood again for a number of years. It was really bad. That's Life Before Man is an awful book.
Yeah. Oh boy. So, we kind of touched this, but do you believe Penelope's version of events? And do you think it's possible to know which was the real version?
I mean, she doesn't really stray from like the actual like this is what happened. It's more of the this is how I felt about what happened. So I do believe that she did feel that way, and that some of the perspectives are different. Like I believe, yeah, she probably was unhappy that her house was full of suitors and that her husband was gone for 20 years and has this habit of playing her and conning her and lying to her and sleeping with other women. I do believe all that.
Do you believe she was true to him, unlike what the maids claimed?
I believe she was.
You think so? You don't think
I think
you don't believe the maid saying that she was sleeping around with the suitors just as much as they were, especially by the end?
I think it's too well established that she's remained faithful. I don't know if she entirely.
I think the afterlife where she hasn't slept around with him either, even
Yeah.
when Odysseus is gone, that might kind of course, since all those Greeks are just kind of stuck together, the rumor mill is even worse than it was in life.
Yeah, I think she regrets that decision to do it, but she's so dug in that it's gonna be hard for her to take herself back out. I think that's where the truth lies. Is that she wishes she'd done it differently.
Telling the story the way Atwood did, between the, as a Greek kind of thing, how do you think that benefited bringing the story out? Or do you think doing it more like something like Alice would have been better, where they're just all prose and no verse?
I think her method kind of shows her strength as a writer because she can, like, Alice is very much, call it by the book, but it's your standard YA style of writing with solid prose, but doesn't really break the rules as far as storytelling goes. But Margaret Atwood, she takes a bunch of different styles, and she mixes it all together and makes it work somehow. And I think that's her strength as a writer. She's on a completely different level from Christina Henry overall.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's definitely true.
No offense to Christina Henry, like Alice is a good
well,
book.
I was actually talking to a friend, and Margaret Atwood came up, and she was like, "Yeah, Margaret Atwood is one of those rare people that holds the triple crown of writing. Because most people are either really good at writing novels, writing short stories, or writing poetry. Margaret Atwood has proven that she can do all three.
Oh yeah, she crushes it.
Yeah, and she's not just okay at 2 out of the 3. She is top of the game for all 3. So that's extremely rare for any writer. Like, think of some of the most popular authors you read, Alex. Like, how many can pull off writing poetry or a short story, with their novel writing?
Yeah, she even wrote a nonfiction book about, like, money management.
Yeah, so she's able to just write anything and do it well. So basically, if she writes it, so she has her duds, but odds are it's going to be worth reading.
Yeah, and, like, she's not exactly prolific, but she's got a huge bibliography. They're not all going to be 100% bangers.
How does this retelling compare to other Odyssey retellings, like "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," or Ulysses, or even let's say Wishbone?
I mean, Wishbone is top, but "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" I mean, that's very loosely based on the Odyssey.
When you hear that, this is based off of the Odyssey. You're like, how?
It's like the whole, like, return journey home, and like, there's a dude with one eye. Like,
yeah, basically it's just
there's I mean,
it's basically
clear,
just
clear references to sirens. Like, I love "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" It's great, but
it's just the return journey is the connection.
Yeah, there's a couple just loose tie-ins to the Odyssey, but so to say it's based on the Odyssey is like saying based on a true story.
Yeah, but so how do you compare it to these other retellings and maybe some of the more famous ones that you've read?
Well, I haven't read too many. Like a kind of like one of those old when we talked about the Tane, or even what was the last one I did? Shit,
The Tane,
The Face in the Frost.
The
Like,
Face in the
it was
Frost.
like, yeah, you see, like, these stories have a lot of influence on the stuff that came after it. But as far as, like, retellings go, I don't want to say this one's, like, up there with a lot of the other versions of or stories that have adapted the Odyssey.
I was kind of comparing it to Bull. I mean, I know it's not a 1-to-1 comparison, but said that was, like you said, it was his best work, and it was just hands down one of the best retellings I've probably read.
Yeah, and, like, the thing I like about Bull is it elevates a character that's relatively faceless, or it's just this monstrous half man, half bull rage machine.
Penelope was kind of faceless. She's just very 2-dimensional.
Yeah, but I feel like Bull, like, it humanized a non-human creature and made you really care about him. As for reading Penelope, I didn't feel as much of a connection. I'm like, yeah, you can probably imagine she struggled a lot, but it just wasn't as deep, I guess. That's probably why I wanted it to be longer. I wanted there to be more, I guess, clash or some sort of
A little bit deeper into her
yeah
surface level
deeper dive
feelings.
rather than being like, oh yeah, I was sad about that. Oh yeah, I didn't like that he lied to me. I'm like, okay, like where do we go from here now?
Oh, we just went back to bed and
Yeah.
that's
Whereas
basically.
like Bull, like you get the full force of like Ariadne's betrayal of him, and it's like sinking down and embracing what everyone sees him
Yeah,
as.
just the madness of it that he developed
Yeah, it's
of
full.
being
Yeah,
an outcast.
and we don't really get that. Like we get yeah, obviously she embraces who she is. Like yeah, I'm this loyal, devout, you know, caricature of a human point of view, but it's just it doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah. How is Odysseus presented in the story? What is Atwood saying, and do you agree?
I'd say he's almost like a sitcom husband. He's very much self-absorbed. He's into his own schemes, and she plays a straight man character housewife who's she goes along with it, but she's also kind of not getting too involved, and like he's kind of oblivious to what she's actually feeling because he's too concerned with what he's doing himself.
I took it as he's a selfish narcissist, probably sociopathic. He clearly doesn't love Penelope because he can't. I don't think he's capable of that. But he is still needs her devotion.
Yeah,
He's a slave to her devotion, and he needs that person to worship him. And that's why he keeps coming back to her, because even in the afterlife, she's like, "Yeah, he always comes back to me," and that toxic loop, and it's
yeah, he's a conqueror, and he needs to like constantly be conquering her and making sure that she remains in that position in his life.
yeah. And it's the biggest thing with a narcissist is everyone's they always love themselves. Like no, what they love themselves, but they need that massage of their ego that other people love them. And that's kind of what the narcissism is he needs people to love him, and you recognize his cleverness, recognize because throughout the whole story, Penelope always sees right through all of his guises and his disguises and his cons, but she'll pretend, oh, that was very clever, oh, that was so good. She'll give him that false encouragement that say, oh yeah, nobody could have seen that. I don't know how. The only reason why I saw it was because I know you so well, kind of thing. Whereas like probably like some of his guys are like, I bet a lot of people saw right through it. They just, oh yeah, there's Odysseus being Odysseus again, and
Yeah, he's the king, so they're like,
yeah,
oh, another
yeah,
great one, my liege.
the king's new robes kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so I just thought it was portrayal, and probably pretty accurate. I mean, for how a lot of people see that typical, archetypical maleness of these stories.
Yeah, and like, I mean, you kind of see him as a buffoon, but he's also a very powerful, clever buffoon. Like the people always make fun of like that stupid thing that he does when he blinds the Cyclops, and he introduces himself. He says his name is Nobody. So when the other Cyclopses come to the Cyclops who's been blinded, they say, "Who blinded you?" And he's like, "Nobody blinded me." And they're like, "Oh, so there's no issue then." Okay.
Yeah.
It's like buffoonery, but it somehow works. Just everything keeps coming up Odysseus.
So last question for you, Alex. How does Penelopiad fit in with other works of Atwood? What are the similar themes, and does she follow a similar pattern or not?
Oh, this definitely fits a lot of our major themes. Like we've hit on them a lot. Just the kind of disconnect between men and women. There's the females being caught up in cycles of abuse, neglect, insecurity. Yeah, it's vintage Atwood. Like you get a lot of these messages and storytelling techniques throughout her works.
Yeah, I was kind of comparing this to The Handmaid's Tale. Not so much the handmaid, but as the commander's wife in Penelope. How basically, especially you see it in the show more than the book, but how the wife is this devout wife who wants all this stuff for her husband, but then she gives up all this, her own individuality to accomplish that, thus pushing her almost at the level of the handmaid, where Penelope is saying, oh yeah, it's all about the husband, it's all about Odysseus. Meanwhile, she's just putting herself lower and lower in that status of everybody else's eyes of, oh, you may be the queen, but you're really just a handmaid with a fancy title.
It's like you're sort of in on the con, like you've been told, like, this needs to happen to save humanity. But at the same time, like, did it really have to be this way?
Yeah,
you're just sort of perpetuating that cycle. Yeah,
and the commander's wife would rail against all the inadequacies, like not being allowed to read, even though she, in the show, she knows how to read, and she's a very smart, intelligent woman, but she'll be the first one to take away her own rights so that her husband's vision of the future could be accomplished. And Penelope seems to be that same like-mindedness of, oh, this is a terrible wrong that's been done to me and to my handmaids and to, these certain peoples. But I can forego that again because my husband needs me to do this. So I thought that was kind of where I saw the similarities in her writing there. Or like, say, Oryx and Crake, or I like The Year of the Flood better. But those characters were vastly different, but it was also a vastly different scenario.
Yeah, and like, I mean, Oryx and Crake has the male protagonist point of view, so it's it's very different storytelling that way.
Yeah. And Blind Assassin
that book is wonderful.
Yeah, I know that's your favorite. But,
yeah, we gotta do that book someday.
Yeah, surprised you didn't want to do it instead of this one. Honestly, I was kind of surprised when you said this one. I was like, I haven't read this one, but maybe it's up there with the other, 3 major ones, but that we've mentioned numerous times now. But yeah, the Blind Assassin, I don't remember a ton of it, but again, it was just a very different scenario, so it just read very differently.
Yeah, it's like this whole story about just relationships between sisters, but there's like this whole thing around it and incorporates sci-fi storytelling. It's great.
Yeah, and basically it's just a quick synopsis. It's they basically, a button baron empire is falling, and the fallout of basically a wealthy family slowly losing their wealth, and the 2 daughters just like living their lives, not quite, I guess I don't want to say caring, but they're just living their lives and are getting hit with the reality stick pretty heavily.
Yeah, it's like pulling back layers because one of the daughters is dead, and the other one may or may not have been a trigger for that death, and it's a whole thing.
Yes, so we'll cover that in more detail in the future season.
Yes.
Don't you fret, fear,
I
whatever.
won't fret, fear, or frere.
Yeah. Just smush all the words together and you'll get something.
All right, but yeah, that was The Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood. Definite recommend. It's even if you don't like it, it's a quick read. Covers are close together.
I gave it 3 stars.
Books. Yeah, I gave it 4. I'd probably round it down to 3.5.
I would round up to 3.5. So I guess we kind of agree on that. Just different sides of the.
Yeah, it's like I give it like on a scale of 1 to 100. I give it like a 80, 79 maybe.
So a C plus B minus.
C plus B minus.
Okay, I definitely in the C range, especially if Margaret Atwood didn't have so many bangers that were just like you said 95 and above on that scale, this might rank a little bit higher. But it says she's her bar is a lot higher because she's so good.
Yeah, and even like a lesser Atwood is still a good Atwood.
Yeah. I mean, how many books do you read that are C or D level that you're just like, yeah, I just need some easy reading? Like your mangas there.
Oh, the mangas?
Yeah, mangas.
Yeah. Manga's trash. I love it, though. Like, Death Note, so good. Karo no Go, love it.
Do you ever read Priest? I think it's Korean.
No, I never read Priest.
Okay, that was really good. I got some reason I grabbed it was like a compilation of the first 3 because I was looking for the graphic novel American version. Is that Priest also?
I think in Preacher.
Preacher, yeah. So I found Priest. And I'm like, close enough. I'll give it a try. And it was actually really, really good. So
that's awesome.
Next month, it's my pick.
Yes, and I believe you're doing a book you've already done.
Alex would hope that, because this is also the book that I picked that Alex is not going to enjoy.
Because I've already read it and I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, and knowing Alex's dislike of translations anyways, I would probably have been able to guess he wouldn't have liked it. At the time I recommended it, I did not know that. But this book is called Night Watch.
Night Watch? Didn't we already do that?
It is not by Terry Pratchett.
Whoa.
I'm going to butcher this last name, so I apologize. But
So we'll both read it and then sound off in the comments on who said it correctly.
It is by Sergei Lukyanenko.
I think it's Sergei Lukyanenko. Oh God, fuck! I almost said it. Sergei Lukyanenko.
Yeah, so it's a Russian book that was translated into English. It is, said, kind of a different spin on how a magic system and fantasy in another country works. So, said it is a translation, so that it is going to be a little bit weird reading at times because it's
it can often be very stilted. It's hard to maintain like the voice of a story when you're translating it to another language.
But yeah, so I enjoyed it the first time around. We'll see if I still enjoy it, Alex.
I'll give it another try.
Yeah, Alex is going to give it another try, see if he hated it as much as he did the first time, or if he gives it if a second reading gives it a second life.
Maybe. Well, there are some translations I like. A lot of the it's like Alexander Dumas stories always have good translations for some reason, but I don't know. I'll try this one.
Yeah, so that will be next month. So we hope you enjoy that book if you read along with us. If not, I just hope you enjoy us kind of talking about it and being confused at what we're actually talking about. If you want to follow us, please do. Every follow, like, comment helps get the show out. The best way to get us more popularity is by being engaged and liking, following, and recommending us to your friends, family, enemies, whoever you think will listen to us. We have a Facebook page. You can join there. We have what else do we have, Alex? I'm blanking all of a sudden.
We got Facebook. We got Insta.
Yeah, we have Instagram. I do a little bit there. We read all the comments there. We have usually polls on Spotify if you want to check out there. We're on YouTube, an audio version. I think I finally fixed that. I don't know how, but the video showed up on the day it was supposed to this time, Alex.
Nice.
So hopefully that trend continues. I guess Alex has some books out.
Yep, we got Paul Plimpton vs. Ragnarok, the recently re-released Destroyer. It's good stuff.
Support your local favorite author, Alex.
Yep, that's me.
So that can be found on Amazon. Links will be in the description. Links for everything will be in the description, really. But so yeah, definitely check us out.
Spread the word.
Spread the word.
Always good.
We enjoy seeing more and more people listen to our shows. It makes us realize we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, get us out of this.
Yeah. So that was the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood. I'm Alex.
By Night Watch.
By Night Watch by Sergei Lukyanenko. I'm Alex.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Bookworms.